Hey, what's happening? It's me, Sprax, again. It's another political video. Jesus Christ, like, I'm getting tired of doing these. And it's about Epstein. This was like a last minute spur of the moment type thing. And it's mainly because I don't really like the Epstein coverage that everybody is suddenly doing about, the Epstein cover up. And I'll explain where I'm coming from, and hopefully I'm making sense here and not just being a negative Nancy. And no, let's just jump right into it. My issue that I'm having with this current Epstein coverage is that I don't see it as something that's going to like end with any tangible results. I just see it as like people talking about it because of the spectacle that it is. And I could be wrong, but what I mean by that is, with the news of Trump doing the most obvious thing ever because he's Donald Trump, you've seen a lot of apolitical, like big reaction channels and other people along the web, not just YouTube, suddenly out of nowhere speaking out about this. And the biggest issue I have consistently had, like at first sight of seeing like their videos, their commentaries, whatever, is where the hell have you been? Possibly one of the worst bills to ever have been drafted just passed. We're talking about the largest wealth distribution in, I believe, American history, if I'm correct. Tax cuts galore. Limitations on Medicare enrollments for immigrants. The gutting of provider taxes, which is going to absolutely hurt rural communities the most, especially those communities that have already been struggling in the healthcare department and like rely on their hospitals that the communities are centered around. Hospitals that are already being shut down, and the ones that aren't shut down are understaffed and basically being overran by patients. The handling of Medicaid information directly to ICE and so on and so on. No, this bill is bad. And besides the usual suspects that are talking about, journalists, reporters, and whatnot, people doing what people expect them to do, and the occasional poor working class Trump supporter who realized, oh shit, the leopards are eating my face. Other than that, up to now has been business as usual, on the bigger apolitical front. Even though if there's anything to have some outrage about, it's definitely this bill. Or of course, the tariffs that the Trump administration are essentially using to like pump and dump the stock market as a form of insider trading, to line their cronies' pockets, which by the way, anecdotally, my friends that are mechanics and myself have already seen the effects of as the price of car parts have gone up. They've seen it. I have a project car that I'm interested in building, as well as giving my car some TLC, and prices are just boop, 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 boop. So if you need something important, like a sensor, or even worse, something that has precious metals in it, like a catalytic converter, well, I'm just here letting you know the best price you were going to get was yesterday. Or the outrage of the constant fear of World War III because of Trump's actions or relationship with Israel, or Elon and Doge. By the way, what a man-child. What is his weird obsession with Doge and that damn dog? Like Elon using Doge as a way to, gut the Security Exchange Commission so that he doesn't have to, have any oversight of his financial wrongdoings in any way, shape, or form. Or Trump basically turning federal workers' lives into turmoil with the firing and rehiring of the workers, which has been happening because of the battle that's going back and forth between the Trump administration and like the court system. There's a lot to be outraged about and to draw your line in the sand. And so my issue is everybody now popping up because this man is trying to hide his relationship with this man. And of course, this man is also like associated with them, but he did the most obvious thing. Of course he was going to try to cover his ass. Did you really expect Teflon or discount Teflon Don to not attempt to save himself? And I'm obviously, of course, completely ignoring the MAGA crowd who are talking about, oh, we got to care about the safety of the children. Like, you can miss me with that because they don't care about poor children, immigrant children, children of color, children whose families rely on the medical services that are being cut. They don't care about Palestinian children. Liberals in the Biden administration also fall in that category. They don't care about children who are going to be aborted, but pro-life and all that, can't really do that. But once they come out into the world, they basically are fucked. Those who have no reliability, way to survive, they don't give a fuck about any of that. So we're not talking about them. You can miss me with that crowd. But the reason they're now harping on this is basically the reason why the previous mentioned crowd I was talking about, the apolitical guys, are harping on this. And that's because, it's a spectacle. Now, for the conservatives, guys like this guy, they've been talking about the elite cabal of pedophiles for the longest time. That's the conspiracy they've been running on. It's made good money for them. And of course, Donald Trump, because he's a moron, blew it up in not only their face, but his, even though he really didn't have to do that, because he didn't, but he created his own scandal by just not knowing how to shut the fuck up. But other than that, they're not commenting on nothing else. They're just talking about this. There's nothing that tickles me more than seeing one of their videos and them going, the government thinks you're stupid. And I'm just like, no, they know. Especially the donors. They have watched time and time again with Americans voting against their interests. They have just received the biggest wealth transfer that's going to result in super yacht after super yacht after super yacht, because that's what they did the previous time they got their tax cuts. And they are now watching the outrage with specific groups finally speaking out over one issue. One that was self-inflicted because it's amateur hour over at the White House, but one issue nonetheless. If anything, the government, and like I said, mainly the donors, because they're involved in the government, they're sitting back and going, hey, got them again. Let them fight amongst themselves. We don't really give a fuck about Donald. They don't think that people are stupid. They kind of know. And please understand, this isn't some type of Epstein apologia or anything, because focus on that is important. But my annoyance that I'm having is the fact that, once again, it's just some people love to latch on to the grand conspiracies and spectacle rather than focus on the tangible everyday reality that's in their face, simply because the shit just isn't sexy enough. And I'm gonna give a local example of something going on that just hopefully show exactly what I mean some more, and because to showcase why I'm just up to my threshold with all of this. So I live in Trenton, New Jersey, something I've talked about before, and I went away for school things and everything, and now I'm back. And Trenton is a dying, decaying town. It's one of those industrial towns that just suffered from the days of industry moving away all throughout the 1900s, as well as the crack epidemic of the 80s, the white flight epidemic, just racial strife, the rise of slumlords, the rise of inaffordable housing because of said slumlords, and now everybody becoming renters, and so on and so on. As well as issues like that dirt bikes. If I listed every problem, we would be here for a moment. And if I keep getting interrupted by dirt bikes and cars, because I can't really soundproof this small room I'm in, hey, we're gonna be here even longer. I might leave that in the video. But I can't list every problem. But recently at City Hall, which is on East State Street, there has been an ongoing issue with a restaurant there, a restaurant that hosts events. It hosts events, draws large crowds and all this other stuff. And because of that, people that can't get in, or people that just see people and want to hang out, there's been a crowd of people loitering, especially at City Hall, to the point that they call it Club City Hall. It's not really the restaurant's fault, because the person who owns the spot, he's basically doing his job for his establishment. But regardless of not, it's caused a crowd. People come and hang out. The cops don't really do anything because it's a trend. And the result of it, with the big crowds and people loitering, is that fights have happened. And even recently, there was a murder that stemmed from that group, which is not really good. So not good at all. So due to all that, Some of the local politicians have decided, oh, we need to do something about it. They created a campaign and protest saying that we need to take back our city hall. We need to stop these illicit drug use, this property destruction, these large, raucous, if I'm saying that right, rowdy crowds, and all these fightings and shootings. This is a bad blight for our city. We need to stop this. And if you're hearing that probably sounds like a good thing. Local politicians being proactive and doing something, and it does sound good. And this is when I tell you that the drug trafficking, the shootings, the fightings, the decaying buildings, the homeless people that are either just mentally ill homeless or mentally ill drug addicts who are like barely conscious, that has existed for decades at City Hall and has been getting worse over the years. And I'll explain even further. I'll paint some examples. So I moved to Trenton when I was 14 years old. And then I got into the local politics when I was 20, and all this will be important. But back when I was 19, I was in high school, and that's because I previously was a dropout. Like, I had completely dropped out of school. And a couple months, when I was 18, a couple months before I turned 19, I enrolled in this school on East Hanover called Daylight Twilight. And this is important as one day, which would be, I believe, May 2nd, 2011, at 9 o'clock in the morning, the chief of staff of the Mac administration, who was the mayor at the time, the chief of staff was arrested on East Hanover Street, down the block from our school, for purchasing allegedly 12 bags of heroin, which police said was from the area. And if you went to Daylight Twilight and you was on the second floor in the northeast corner of the building, the classroom in the northeast corner, and you looked out the window, you could see the police activity of that arrest. Guess who just happened to be in that class at that time? Me and my friends. For you non-locals, we literally were right up there. We were watching it happen right down there. That arrest that happened was about a block and a half from City Hall, a 3-minute walk. It's also about that far? Daylight Twilight. We're down the street, so maybe a 4 to 5 minute walk. Yeah, that's City Hall in downtown. And that, I really need soundproof. But that situation right there, the administrations have changed, but that area has not. The problems of then are still the problems of today, with some added decay. More buildings are rotting, more businesses have left since I've left and came back. Unfortunately, there's more people that are just strung out and homeless downtown. I wasn't obviously born during the crack epidemic, so I don't know how bad it was then, but from the mid 2010s to now, the gap I have since I've been here, I've seen it. I've seen the change. I forgot to mention this, but we have an abandoned parking garage and abandoned hotel. And this is all downtown. This is all at City Hall, including the literal City Hall, which itself is falling apart. And I don't even want to include this in a video, but I'm pretty sure this is poop. Literal poop. This is at the City Hall building. But they don't really pay attention to this side anymore, so out of sight, out of mind. And I'm not telling you all this just so I can air out personal grievances, but I'm telling you all this because there are structural, systemic issues that exist and need to be addressed. Issues that our now current mayor, Reed Gusquera, I just probably butchering his name, I could never get it right. Issues that he knows about as he's been in the office for 7 years now. And it's not just issues that, he knows about, but it's issues that some of the, local political figures know about. People that I've had the misfortune of being around back in my 20s, people who cared more about, their petty squabbles and fighting with people they had personal vendettas against at important official meetings. People who care more about being a leader rather than a follower. People who use their position to try to boost their power and image, no matter how minuscule it is. People who existed back when I was in my 20s, who were in those roles, who are still there now. And I'm 33. It's the same shit. And all these people know about these structural systemic issues. They know about it. If I know about it, they know about it. When I was in my 20s, me and my friends were, just advocating about it, especially me, because I was the only person, like in the places I was the only person in my 20s that was there. Everybody else was 30, 40, 50, 60, and now 10 years later, they're older, right? But they all know about that then, they know about it now, and yet the biggest issue of importance was taking back City Hall. And it's not like they wanted to take back City Hall because it was a problem that needed to be addressed. No, they wanted to take back City Hall is because it became a spectacle. It became headlines, and headlines bring problems. It brings eyes on these things, and you can't really have that going on. And that's the parallel that I'm like drawing here. It's the spectacle that's the issue, because how the hell are you going to take back City Hall when you literally don't even take care of the literal City Hall building or the downtown areas associated with it? And I know that the mayor knows about the issues, not just because of, I can see them, but because even though I've been away, I know people that know him and his administration that have told me since I've been getting back involved. In fact, I previously made a video about the out of control parking enforcement that we have, which is here if you're interested in seeing it.
And speaking of the devil, parking enforcement. It's only 10 o'clock in the morning. Some of these people aren't probably even awake yet. Where are the permits? Where are the permits, Trenton? So people can park. You already know the answer to that. And the mayor knows of this problem too.
They're essentially operating as a pseudo racketeering force that are using the parking tickets to generate revenue. And it's a problem. It's been so much of a local problem that, people have been vocal about it. I put out a thing on Facebook and, for people to give me information about what was happening, people who have been dealt with the ticketing. Some friends shared it, and I just got a flood of things, including people who have permits that have been that have got ticketed multiple times within a couple weeks span. It is out of control. And I know that the mayor knows about this. I spoke to somebody that told me the mayor knows. The mayor's not going to do anything though, because even though it's a vocal problem, and even though it's a local problem, like everything else, it's not a spectacle. It's not a headline. Whereas Club City Hall, however, that made the news. That's a problem, a major problem. The rest, whatever. It doesn't matter that local residents and even local businesses are complaining about how, all this ticketing is affecting their money. It's not a spectacle. It's nothing that can be seen. It's out of sight, out of mind. And that's been my issue with the whole Epstein coverage. Everything previously was just out of sight, out of mind, because it wasn't a spectacle. It wasn't something sexy. It wasn't something to talk about for those apolitical types. But now you got something to speak on. Now we can talk. And I'm like, as I said previously, where the hell has everybody been? Now, don't get me wrong. Nowhere am I saying that the Epstein cover-up should not be addressed, because 100% should. It's a cover-up on a government scale, and it's amateur hour at that. When I just recently saw that they released the edited video and didn't even take out the metadata. They included everything in there, and I've been an editor involved in media for most of my life. This minus the monitor is one of my setups that I like to use, my mobile run and gun setup. So I heard that and I'm just like, y'all serious? Oh, you guys are bad at this, because this is a big yikes. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be focused on, because 100% should. Just like how I'm saying the issue with the crowds at, the City Hall, Club City Hall as they were calling it. I'm not saying that shouldn't have been addressed, because you shouldn't have fights at your City Hall, or even a murder associated with it. That is honestly a problem. But the thing is, starting with the local level first, this is what you have a police force for. I've clubbed in many places in the tri-state area, and there is no loitering that you're really going to do. The local police will come through and disperse everybody. Now, there are things, the way to do to stop it. And stop it they could if in that way we had like an active police force who aren't, and I could go on a whole separate topic, but I won't do it here because I'll just turn into a rant, but a police force who really aren't that great at their jobs. I'm just keeping it honest with y'all. The issue is like the reforms and laws that were quickly made, they're honestly symbolic. Everything that they put on the restrictions, the late night restrictions now, and businesses that have like over, I believe like 50 residents, have to hire not just private security, but the police for security. Oh, funny how that works. They keep the peace and whatnot, and they're going to be responsible for like the crowds outside and everything. That's mainly symbolic. It's only for downtown and that specific spot right there. The other businesses that are further out that are doing the same stuff, nobody's going to pay attention to them. They're not going to be enforced because it's out of sight, out of mind. Only the spectacle matters. And as things continue to die down, we'll quickly be back to business as usual. And that's how, like, on the grander scheme of things, I see this. I feel like it's really just going to end up just being business as usual. Yeah, it's cool seeing the conservatives rip each other apart and Donald Trump have, consecutive self-incriminating tantrum after self-incriminating tantrum. Those things are all cool and all, but I then respond with this. We've already seen that. We saw that in his previous time in office. I know a lot happened, but if y'all really remember, that shit was a cluster fuck. Week after week after week of just disaster, firings, everything else. It was like a blur, to be honest, just because so much happened. And then COVID, like the way the COVID disaster, the way he treated it and everything, it was bad. It was really bad. But ultimately, we went back to business as usual because, well, he's back in office again. Now, when it comes to the journalists, the people that report on news already and everything else, for them, I expect them to do what they've already been doing. They've been covering all this stuff and whatnot, and they're going to keep covering it because that's their jobs, and they care. But like I said, for the rest, and maybe I'm just being, super pessimistic here, I don't really see anything coming from this other than 50 more Alex Jones coming out the woodwork, just creating the conspiracy world into turmoil, which quite honestly will have the CIA popping champagne and doing backflips. I truly need soundproofing or a new apartment. As I was saying, it'll have the CIA doing backflips because Alex Jones was the best thing to ever happen to them, and they didn't even have to create or pay him. But other than that, that's all I see is that and more situations happening like at the, Comet Ping Pong Pizzeria where the guy, shot the place up because he went to go save the children. Other than those two things, I don't see much really coming from this. And once again, I could be wrong. I could 100% be wrong. Maybe I'm being pessimistic here. And this is what I'm saying, how whatever thoughts you have, share it on here. Share what you think about this. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I on to something? Am I not? Truly, I don't know. I'm just sharing my thoughts. But, besides that, that being said, that's the video. This was kind of a spur of the moment type thing, So I typed stuff out, got some material and blah, 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 and, just trying to get it out as quick as possible because, there's something that I just started thinking of, and maybe let me just share my thoughts and see what other people think on it. But other than that, you already know how I'm going to end it, and if you don't, you don't now. Deuces. By the way, and I just always need to get this out, hopefully I'm in frame because I'm so damn tall. Donald Trump says he is 6'3", 225. That was his official, checkup, whatever the word is for it. I am 6'3", 265. And even though I could kind of do the truffle shuffle at the moment, I've been fasting and whatnot, but I can't really work out the way I'd like to work out because my car accident last month and my wrist just still consistently hurts when I'm doing anything. There is no way in hell he's 225. This is what I looked like when I was 225. Man, he lying his ass off.